Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of the 70 Chipcast covering Week 13's matchup against the Denver Broncos. I am Robertson Vire. That's Ben Parker. And while you're here, go ahead and hit subscribe and set notifications so you get notifications on all of the videos that come out of this channel. Because Ben is just putting in the work. He is grinding. He is doing all types of stuff. And, it's been kind of a jump into viewership, past week, 2 weeks. So we really appreciate that. If you're new, like I said, go ahead and subscribe and, let us know what you think in the comments about this week's matchup against the Denver Broncos or anything else we've been talking about because we've covered a lot of stuff past couple of weeks. So we really appreciate the support and let's dive into some Denver Bronco talk. Before we do that, Ben, how are we doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. I hope everybody thank you for being with us. We're not going to move fast tonight. We've got one thing to cover. That is a Denver Broncos preview. So, but we appreciate you joining us. Um, Over the weekend, I actually had a family reunion. Sorry for the cough. I was actually up closer to your neck of the woods, Robertson. I was up in
Oh wow.
just across the Virginia border. There was a Marshall family reunion up there in good old Ararat, Virginia, which is right across the state line by like a mile and a half. Um, Got to see a bunch of my family members up there. That's about an hour triangulated from Winston. That's about 15 minutes from Mount Airy, North Carolina. Really had a great time. So anyway, I was pushing up there towards your region of the country anyway. Really beautiful up there. And shout out to everybody over there in the Winston, Galax, Claudsville, triad over there, if you will.
Man, look at that. Look at you, just a world trekker over here, I mean,
Yes,
what was
yes.
it one of those family reunions that you were uh dreading, or was it a like, man, I can't wait to, see everybody, I can't wait to see, these people, like I haven't seen them in a while, like
Because there are both kinds, and believe me, I get
yes.
it. But no, this one I was really looking forward to. There were several people coming. Matter of fact, I saw one person I hadn't seen in 5 years. Shout out to Charlie. Saw a couple of other people that I hadn't seen in 2 or 3 years, and saw some of the regulars that we get to see every year. So no, I really look forward to it. Really appreciated everybody that came out. So I very much look forward to this one. As a kid, I didn't like these as good because, when you're 12 and 15, it's a lot of people that you don't know at times, right? And some of them can be a little awkward, right? But the older I've gotten, the more I've enjoyed it. And I even enjoyed it to some extent in my 20s. But yeah, I really loved it. And the food was fantastic too.
Yeah, for me, like I do have a larger family, but I feel like I see 90% of them, during any big holiday, like, this upcoming week or any during the summertime, I get to see most of them. So family reunions would be kind of, I don't want to say pointless, but it'd be like, well, I'll just see you at the next one.
Right.
You
Yeah. Now, when
know?
it's the same people you already see, yeah, that takes
Yeah.
away. But we're scattered, man. We used not to be. If you go back to the 80s and 90s, we weren't scattered. It was a lot of them right there. Over the years, that generation, a lot of them have passed on, right? And then a lot of their descendants have moved around, as people do for jobs and different things, right? So we're kind of up and down the eastern seaboard, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, a little bit more spread out, so it's a little bit more difficult to see everybody. And that once a year, that's it's just great to and listen, even if it's just 45 minutes, a lot of them don't even stay for like hours, right? They just drop in, you give a hug, quick check in, see how everybody's doing, and then they're out. That's fine, just good to see everybody one time, right? It's just real good.
That's good though. That's good. Um, Reminiscing, back, the younger days and so forth. And it's funny that we're talking about that because you got the old Sports
Oh
Illustrated up
yeah.
there of the 1987
Mm.
skins, and you know that that team that was led by oh my gosh, that's gonna drive me crazy. Jay Schrader,
Yes.
initially, and then
Yeah.
Gibbs pulls off the trade late in the season for Doug Williams, and then Schrader gets hurt. He brings in Doug, and Then he rides the hot hand through the playoffs, even after Schrader's, healthy, which is a whole controversy. No one thinks about that now because of the
No,
legendary performance that Doug Williams put on in the Super Bowl, and
right.
it and what that meant being the first black quarterback, to start a Super Bowl and forget about anything else that he did, just starting the Super Bowl, and then putting on a performance that he did and what that meant to so many millions of people. No one really knows that there was a big controversy going into the playoffs that, hey, it was Schrader that took him there, that
Yeah.
more or less, it was to a lesser extent the Wentz Foles situation. If you're trying to, if it's, you're person that doesn't really know much about our history or anything like that, it was kind of like one of those situations. Well, Wentz took you there, he got you to that point, but it was Foles that really carried you through the playoffs and the Super Bowl in a fantastic performance. So, because really, I mean, in a way, it's relatively similar player wise because Doug really wasn't a starting quarterback in the NFL. He was more of a backup, kind of like Nick
Right.
Foles was. So, um, he didn't really do much. He played better probably in the AFL or I guess was it the UFL back then? I forget what other league there
There was a
was.
UFL. I cannot remember if he was part of that or not, so I apologize.
It was whatever the other alternate league was back,
Well, there was the
in the 80s.
USFL where a lot of them guys were coming from for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
He and I do know he had more success there than he did in the NFL. So,
hmm.
um, and it was against Denver Broncos, against John Elway and that team there, and I mean, I probably the Broncos were just as, had they won that game, it wouldn't have been a surprise necessarily. They
Right.
were just as capable, just as exciting as the team that we had. So it was a dominant performance start to finish. So, reminiscing that, wishing I was alive during that time to see it, that
I know.
cultural moment that Super Bowl
Mm.
was, had to be something spectacular.
So many things, and I promise we're gonna get the preview here, y'all. But if y'all don't like the reminiscing, y'all can skip ahead and catch the real preview. So many things back then, right? Because you mentioned the Doug Williams, Schroeder, Gibbs controversy, which unless you were alive then, most people don't remember or know about, right? But this was an era in which the NFC teams won a whole string of Super Bowls in a row. I forget what the number ended up being finally, but the NFC teams would just win, and most of them were blowouts. There was a whole string of Super Bowl blowouts during this like 10-year run in which like very few of those games were close. Slaughters, right?
Hmm.
And then on top of that, you were I lose track of the timeline here, but you're somewhere in the Elway timeline of, well, he just can't win the big one. And he wouldn't for another 10, 11 years, right?
Yep.
Before Terrell Davis and Shanahan showed up, right? It's so amazing how different things can be, and then they change, or sometimes they don't, and it just gets forgotten about. But boy, this was right in, I love watching games like this, but yeah, it would have been nice to have seen it live as well. This was just a little bit before I started watching games live here, so I missed this one. But good times there for the Washington fan base.
Yeah, and something that goes kind of not to get too like political or anything like that, but something that goes kind of untold is really like the racial tension that this had caused, because, Jay Schrader, obviously a white quarterback, Doug Williams, a black quarterback,
Hmm.
it wasn't like, rioting or anything of that nature, nothing extreme like that. But, for more recent Redskin fans, the RG3 Kirk Cousins, there was a faction of fans that thought that there were racial undertones
Mm,
to that
yeah,
situation, where it's like, well, we don't want Robert, we'll put Kirk in. He knows how to quote unquote play quarterback.
right,
Um, when really, to me, I don't think Shanahan had anything to do with that necessarily. I don't think that was the situation at all. I think it was that Kirk was just a better overall quarterback, but there's always going to be debates about that, and that's unfortunately how it was back in the '80s as well, to probably a more sinister extent.
right,
But
right.
yeah, just something that people don't really think about when we look back at that time and that year.
It is. It's one of those things that does get forgotten, and you don't see that as much today. You'll still see it a little bit, right? Because there's always going to be some of that, right? But
Yeah,
today we have black quarterbacks playing all over the place, college and pro. Most of us don't think about it, but there was a time, and the farther back you go, the worse it got, right? But you're right. That was a part of the storyline that year as well. And all of it came together for a magical season, and that's all anybody remembers is the
yeah,
Super Bowl
exactly.
win.
Exactly. I mean, 4 touchdowns in one quarter,
Oh,
after going out
oh,
with a gruesome knee injury.
mm,
You saw it I mean, if you saw it on TV, if you didn't, go look up the highlights. I mean, when he gets tackled, it's like, I'm sure, because this was after Theismann and that knee thing
right.
happened. It looked pretty gruesome, and it looked like, well, his career is just done based on that hit. Like the way he
Hmm.
fell, the way his knee turned, and then to come back after that. There was Schrader was in for a drive or two to come back after that and to throw 4 touchdowns in one quarter. And they weren't just like little dink and dunk touchdowns. I mean,
No.
they were bombs downfield. I mean, that's just insanity.
Yeah, yeah, insanity. All right, so there actually is a game this week between Washington and Denver, and Denver's actually 9-2 this time around, and Washington's struggling at 3-8. So,
Yeah.
you know, not the matchup that was back then, of course. But we're going to preview that game tonight. Robertson, I think we're going to start off with a little bit of reminder here. I got tired. I really did. I got tired of not putting together any analytics. I mean, the past few weeks it's been a free fall, right? Losses and the defense just not even being productive enough to even say, "Hey, tweak this or tweak that," right? So I got
Yep.
tired of that, and I put together a chart of points allowed by quarter by the Commanders defense this year. Not going to reveal any surprises here. I just wanted to put together a chart. So I guess that's all right, right? Since we didn't have a whole lot to analyze for the past few weeks, we put
Right.
out
Yeah.
something anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the theme here is you look at these games and these charts that we just get behind. The specific
Yeah.
chart that you have here,
Yes.
you get behind, and then you've dug yourself into a hole that, based on last season, Jaden was able to get you out of. But
Hmm.
I would argue that while on paper we might have had a better roster this year than we did last year,
Right.
there's just a talent discrepancy, and then you know add that to a first place schedule. You add all the injuries in that we've faced, and
Hmm.
it's just not. It's a recipe for disaster. It
That
was
first
the
place
perfect
schedule,
storm.
that's a great point because you and I have not mentioned that much this year. But when that flips, right? Because how many teams do we see every year? And the NFL does this on purpose, and I'm okay with it. But every year, teams that are pretty average, that have worst place schedules that they're playing, while a lot of other teams that had good years last year, they're going through a murderer's row of, top teams. That does play a big part. The good news is, to quote my mom here, the good news is, I have good news on the Commanders, okay? That is that there's no new bad news this week, okay? Because we didn't play a game and nobody could get injured unless somebody got injured in practice. So there's no new bad news, all right? It's
Right.
just, hey, here's what's up. You can see the green line here on the chart. That's basically 5 points. So anywhere below 5 points a quarter, you're doing pretty good. Because if you're allowing less than 5 points a quarter, then you're coming up with less than 20 points a game, right? That's what you're allowing.
Hmm.
But dang it, man, there's almost as many. It's not quite. There's almost as many double digit quarters given up by our defense as there are quarters below 5 points. And you can see it all in the chart here. Obviously, that 24-point outlier by Seattle. But then, then you've got this over here, the string of the Lions game, right? There's three
Yep.
quarters in a row where we give up double digit points. You go back over here to that Raiders Falcons sector where there's three more
Yep.
quarters of double digits. And then you dang it, you get over here in there's these peaks, right? The peaks aren't good. You get over into that Cowboys sector too, where it's 17, 10, 14. It's just been that bad this year. It has been that bad, and that's brought about some of the changes. But again, we just wanted to put together some kind of a chart. Nothing new here. The one thing I will say, you look at the tail end of this chart right here, that Dolphins game, right? And the Dolphins are capable. I realize they were missing, one or two good players on offense, but the Dolphins are capable of scoring points. They did, I think, the week before against Buffalo, right? They scored plenty of
Hmm.
points.
Yeah.
So you saw that one game where it's 3-3-0-7. That's what we gave up. So I'd love to see that continue a little bit. I'm not necessarily predicting that chokehold on the Broncos offense, but we'll get into that later. I would just like to see some of that instead of these double digit quarters that we're handing out. So we'll see if that continues this week.
Yeah, so you can almost see on the chart where the injuries started happening.
Yes.
After around that Charger game,
Yep.
and after that, that's where the injuries really started piling up, and
Hmm.
um, that's where everything just kind of fell apart after that Bear game. During that Bear game and after that Bear game, where in 6 games there was only 3 quarters. So out of six, that's 24 quarters. Only 3 of them did we not give up any points.
Yeah,
That's pretty bad.
that's pretty bad.
So. You can see where the injuries really started affecting the team. You can see where Jaden missed significant time. Um, and although you're right that the Dolphin game went pretty well defensively, it wasn't by all at all means or by any means. It was not perfect.
No,
Still, the run defense was
it
god
wasn't.
awful. But you did see some pressure generated against Tua. You did see some of the defensive backs making some plays. There is reports that Will Harris might come back for this week against Denver. I, I hate to say that wouldn't help much, but he really wasn't doing a whole lot when he was healthy. So,
Right.
um, but I guess it's just glad to have a capable body back in the lineup
A little bit of
more than
continuity,
anything.
a little bit of depth, right? At least a guy that's going to come in and try to hit, and yeah, it.
Hey, if it gets Quan Martin off the field, I'm fine with it. Um, I hate to take shots at players, but he's just been absolutely
Heading
atrocious
into
this
the
year.
season, I was kind of looking forward to seeing how Quan would do. It was the other safeties and guys I
Yeah,
was a little worried about, and
it was Will Harris.
it
We
was Will
were both worried
Harris.
about.
And Harris
Um,
hasn't been great, but Quan unfortunately has been worse. So, things can change. Guys can play better, you know, if let's say the rest of this year. Guys can play better if the offense is producing a little bit, if the schedule softens up a little bit, if the ball bounces your way a lucky time or two. Guys can play better, but so far everybody's playing at their worst just about, right? I mean, I don't know how this group of guys could play individually worse than they have realistically. That we've kind of gotten everybody's worst performance, but they're all capable of playing better too. So, we'll see if it picks up a little bit the rest of this season.
yeah, and also Terry might be coming back for this game.
Hmm.
Noah Brown's practice window has been opened, so we might be getting some reinforcements on the way. Which is a positive sign. It's just unfortunate that it's just too little, too late. Um, but to me, the argument that we should be playing for a better draft pick instead of playing to just be better. I don't like that argument. If we were in a true rebuilding mode, I would agree with you. But to me, I'm still not convinced that going 3-14 is a guaranteed return for Dan Quinn or half his
Right.
staff. Like I'm
Right.
not convinced of that. Um, and
Yeah.
if I'm Dan Quinn, I don't want to test that theory or test or have the confidence to be like, oh
No.
yeah, we don't have to win another game. Like we're all right. Like I don't think it would happen even if it came to that, but I'm not convinced that that is going to be the case.
Yeah, I agree. And over the past few years, we've seen teams that kind of purposely were bad so that they could get a top draft pick. And while it did help, those franchises 5, 6, 8 years later are not better than they were 5, 8, 10 years ago. Jacksonville basically between a little bit of Jets, you know, unluckiness, right? Jacksonville picked up the number one pick and got Trevor Lawrence. It has not changed the franchise in a huge way. It's
Hmm.
helped, right? But it didn't do what they thought it would do, what everybody thought it would do. You can go back to when the Colts were horrible for Andrew Luck and they got him. It certainly helped them for a short period of time, but they never did break through the ceiling of being able to compete with the top teams. And then he got injured and that's all gone. So that's two of the really noticeable times where teams have purposely been dumping in order to get a quarterback, right? How much
Hmm.
less so when it's not even a quarterback? And this year, it may not necessarily be a quarterback that's going to be the most coveted players this year. It wasn't last year, right? So
Hmm.
there's no draft pick coming in that's any more important than the belief in the building that hey, we are fighting together and we can win. That's the biggest thing, and then you start adding the draft picks to it. I'm just not a fan of trying to see how bad we can be for the rest of the year. And then all of a sudden next year, we're going to kick it into gear because we have a couple of new draft picks. I'm not a fan of that. And like you said, when it's that bad, not everybody survives anyway. The only person who might benefit is the general manager, but even he is under a much bigger microscope at that point when you've been that bad. So it's not a good experience for anybody, and I generally do not like the results, and I definitely don't like that pattern of thinking. We're here to fight and win every week is largely. I'm rarely ever going to change off of that. Maybe the final week of the season, I might
Yeah.
change my tune a little bit. Other than that, no, we're here to fight every week.
Yeah, and Adam Peters isn't immune from this either, especially after seeing both Cam Curl and Emmanuel Forbes just absolutely ball out in LA right
Hmm.
now. I mean, that's got to sting for a lot of
Right,
Commander fans, me,
right.
myself included.
Yep,
Um, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens the rest of the way. Maybe the reinforcements come at a great time. Uh, my thing is I don't want to push any of them. It's not worth
right,
long-term risk to get back out there right now, especially considering even though we're not mathematically eliminated,
right.
um, it's rather unlikely.
Yeah, agreed. I'm fine with anybody healthy coming back and playing, and that includes Daniels. But anybody not dialed in and ready to go, if they would be better off with another week of rest, we're going to give them that week of rest. All right. That I'm not rushing anybody back for the rest of the year. There's just no point in that. But that's where it's at. Real quick though, before we get into the deep dive on the scouting report for Denver, since we can't celebrate the Washington Commanders right now, right? We don't have any wins to celebrate. Can we at least celebrate something else? I was thinking, the Philadelphia Eagles took a pretty big loss this past week. I mean,
Oh
can
man,
we celebrate that, even though it came at the hands of Dallas?
no, because the way that I feel about divisional matchups specifically involving the Cowboys is for a 0-0 tie, where both teams look like absolute crap, you know. And if someone has to win, then it's a 3-0,
Mm,
win by whoever, you know.
yeah.
Um, which I mean, it's great seeing the Eagles struggle and kind of be torn apart. But we've seen this song and dance multiple times over the years with Sirianni or Hurts and that group where it does look like a clown show more or less. But it's like when it matters most, they just act like a world-class franchise and a world-class team, and they can just pull it all together and beat the living snot
We've
out of
seen it
people.
one time. I mean, as far as actually winning a Super Bowl,
Right.
obviously there's in season rallies where they look crappy at one part of the year and then good the next part of the year. But what we've seen just as often is we've seen them get bounced out of the playoffs twice by Tampa Bay,
Yeah.
under the Sirianni regime. So I'm gonna take my wins where I can get them. Okay, so I'm gonna emotionally celebrate the fact that the Eagles had a 21-0 lead and then choked it all away.
Yeah, I mean, again, something that is to celebrate, but the fact that it came
Right.
at the hands of Dallas is rather annoying
I
because now
know.
it looks Jerry looked like a competent GM, and we all know that that's not.
The On the flip side, because I think the Washington hasn't played Philadelphia, right? We got two games against them at the end of the year.
Right. Yep.
So,
Yep.
that does make Philadelphia look a little bit more gettable, especially if Daniels were to be able to come back. A little bit
That
more
is true.
gettable than the Eagles looked, say 4 weeks ago, right? When we were assessing the schedule. So, hey, stay tuned, Commanders fans. It's always fun to beat our division rivals. I listen. I don't care if the best draft pick in the world at quarterback is sitting there waiting for me at number one in the draft. I do not want to rack up any more losses to anybody in the division. Okay. I just don't want to do
No,
that ever, ever, you know,
because
never.
I mean these owners they do have egos.
They,
Like these
yes, they do.
that they some owners really take these divisional games rather serious. Not that they shouldn't, but they take it a little bit more seriously than other games because they don't want to look
Right.
inferior to their own competition. So
Yeah. Yeah.
direct competition, that is. Um, so these division games matter for sure.
Matters to me. All right. Let's jump into it here. Here's the scouting report for the week for the Denver Broncos. No surprises here. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised at what we have to talk about here. But here on the left side of the screen, the Broncos grades by position. I put these together. People may all see them a little bit differently, but basically, if you look on the offensive side of the football, that is their offensive line, wide receiver, tight end, running back, quarterback. It's fairly pedestrian across the board. Um, there's not a lot of standout as a group. Now there are individual players, and I've got the offensive line rated the best out of the offensive position groups. But generally speaking, it's not an overwhelming offense. And I'm going to roll right into the offensive ranks here, which you can see in the middle of the screen. It shows in the ranks, right? These are the actual 2025 ranks in the NFL based on current statistics. Boy, they're 16th in points per game. They're 14th in yards per game. They do barely break the top 10 in rushing yards per game. That's their best feature. But boy, I mean, you look at everything here: red zone 15th, third down 18th, EPA 20th, So this is a fairly productive but truly average NFL offense. It's doing enough for them to win games, but it's not a scary offense, generally speaking.
I would agree with you. I think there are some individual players. Sutton obviously,
Yes.
Mims is a deep threat, and it can be a problem at punt and kick return. Um, RJ Harvey seems to be having a fantastic rookie season. We did not really talk much about him, going into the draft. Us needing a running back. I didn't really talk about him much. I don't recall you either. So I mean, that seems to be a pleasant surprise. Um, and Bo Nix, there's a lot of love hate that goes on with him. I don't hate on Bo Nix. I think he's pretty good, but I'm not gonna say he's he to me he's kind of like in that Purdy, Dak, currently Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, like he's kind of in that class right now. Whereas like he has his moments of brilliance, but he also has those boneheaded mistakes moments where you just want to sit him down on the bench and never play him again. again. But um, I think he's playing pretty well this season, but they don't have a fantastic offense as a unit.
I like their offensive line the best out of everything there. That's led by Quinn Manurts over there and Bowles. They're both having good years, but we expected that. It's a good offensive line. It's not perfect. It's not the best in the NFL. Very good offensive line that really lays the foundation for everything they do. I'm not a huge Bo Nix guy, but with Sean Payton, and you can see I've got him graded C plus. I think he is on the plus side of life right now. That's with Sean Payton. Without Payton, I'm not sure Knicks would even be starting, to be honest, if it were some other teams, right? But with Payton, they have worked very well together. And Nix is able to use his strengths, and it is being productive and it is useful. And then that running game, they're able to put the good running game. RJ Harvey didn't get a whole lot of attention during the draft because he was kind of rated as, the eighth best out of a really good running back class. I mean, there were like 15 to 20 guys with good ratings last year. Excuse me. Harvey was one of them, but he was just one of the guys in the mix. Once everybody saw he got drafted by Denver, everybody was like, yes, that's going to be one of the three most productive running backs in football this year out of the rookies because he's with Peyton. Peyton's going to use him. That didn't happen right away. I know that because he's on my fantasy team. But as the season has gone on, he has gotten to be more and more part of the game plan, the regular game plan, right? Not just a here and there thing, and it's working. And I do expect as the season goes on, that's not going to get less, that's going to get more. So I figure we see fairly healthy amounts of RJ Harvey on Sunday, and we'll see how that works out. You flip over to the defensive side of the football, and everything changes. Okay, there's
Yeah.
there's no more average. There's no more. Hey, it's solid. It's productive. There's pretty much nothing but dominance over here on the defensive side of the football for Denver. And again, I'm not saying anything people don't know, but if you're looking for the scary side of the Denver team, it's right here. So back to the grades here. The secondary is really good. All right, this is a fantastic secondary. Arguably the best secondary in football, although I think there's a couple of other units that can compete with it. But man, you look everywhere. There's no weakness on this defense. Everywhere you look, it is tremendous at every level, at every position group, inside, outside, tremendous. And that shows up in the rankings here. Matter of fact, I think their rankings are even better than their personnel, which is a credit to everybody on that defense who's working. It's a credit to that defensive coaching staff, you know? So you look here at the rankings, they're third in points per game allowed, third in yards per game allowed. Their defensive EPA is fourth. They're first in third down. They're first in sacks by a wide margin. They're fourth in red zone. I mean, there is no weakness on this defense unless you want to call turnovers a weakness. They're 27th in the league in creating turnovers. It does not seem to be a big deal for them. They're just looking to choke you down. I don't think they feel the need to go high risk and create a lot of turnovers. They just know they're good. And they are. They're really good. Everywhere you look here on defense, it's quite fairly dominant.
Yeah, I mean that pass rush is rather scary. Cliff Kingsbury has had 2 weeks of nightmares straight,
Mm.
honestly, with that pass rush. Now, our offensive line has played a lot better in recent weeks, but that's not to say that against the number one pass rush in the NFL, arguably, that they're going to play, the same that they've been playing the past couple of weeks. So, uh, my gut is telling me they're going to struggle mightily at times, Sunday night. But again, I have some theories on what to do when you are a severe underdog and you're facing up you're up against a fantastic defense. I have some thoughts on that I'll share later.
Yeah, and we're going to get right into that here in just a second. And I will say, I mean, they've got a couple of guys, Bonito, probably the leader among them, who are excellent at just getting to the quarterback on their own. But I think the most scary part of their pressure on the quarterback, their sacking of the quarterback, is the fact that they have so many different guys that can do it. And then you have a secondary behind them that is just not going to give up much. And then that allows you to go total twist, stunt, blitz, not blitz, back out. I mean, at that point, it gets insane, right? That's almost the perfect mix, right? We got a good
Hmm.
secondary who's not going to give up a bunch of nonsense. We got individual guys, individual players who can get to the quarterback on their own. And now that provides us the freedom to just, vertically, horizontally, anything those edge rushers want to do. They can run their own two-man games if they want to. They don't even necessarily have to play. If they see a weakness or a blemish, they can just tell their other dude, hey, me and you this play we're going to two-man game it, whether it's inside outside or whether it's CB's going to blitz, I'm going to drop out. It's insane the possibilities that open up when you already have legit edge rushers with a great secondary. Denver has that. That's a really hard thing to stop right there. It's brutal. Phew.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know even where you begin. It'd almost be pick your poison, and we're gonna try to choose the least amount, or maybe you go right at them. I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
Um, it's I wouldn't want to do that job
No.
facing this defense. I certainly wouldn't want that offensive coordinator job.
I wouldn't either. You've got your keys to the game this week. I've got
Yep.
stuff in my head. I didn't go formal with it, so I'm curious to see what you came up with. So let's get right over to it.
Yeah.
Says Ben's keys to victory, but this week, Robertson, it's actually yours, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, uh, you look at the defensive success, the limited defensive success, against Miami. Uh, Granted, Miami, they kind of beat themselves in a lot of ways, during that game, but we kind of got to Tua a little bit. It wasn't a lot, it
Yeah.
wasn't consistent pressure, but when we did get to him, they were meaningful plays, they were meaningful sacks, and it definitely affected the outcome of the game, even though we didn't end up winning. But it could have got out of hand a lot faster. So I'm looking to blitz the living crap out of Bo Nix. Okay, like we're 3-8, we got nothing to lose. I'm not saying be stupidly aggressive and being careless, but I want to blitz the crap out of, you know, a quarterback that granted is mobile, but hasn't handled the blitz too well this season. That does have a decent offensive line, so you're not going to be able to get home with four. Um, yeah, that does leave some isolated, corners on the outside. Maybe you can switch to more of a zone. I don't, with Will Harris coming back, maybe that does help. I don't think it will, but maybe it does. Um, but I just want to see that kind of aggression. I want to see some exotic blitzes drawn up by Quinn that was on display against Miami. So that's my number one thing. My number two thing is you're going up against a defense that is they're killers, right? So I don't want Mariota to take the ball quick game. Like everyone's going to play quick game against Mariota, okay? Because that's what Kingsbury has been calling. It's like get the ball out of your hands immediately. Don't even let the pass rush get off. Um, that's great if the run game is working, but the run game hasn't been working. So unless you can get that going, it's not going to work. I'm not saying set Mariota every single play on 5, 7 step drops. I'm not saying that, but he did it a bit against Miami, where just get your guys and just rip it, man. Just let that thing go, let it loose. Um, because this might be if Jaden does come back, this might be his last start for the year, and if he doesn't come back, he's auditioning for other teams. Um, so I want to see him kind of let it loose. You got to throw some haymakers. Like throw some 50-50 balls. Give your guys a chance, even though they're not great receivers. Unless Terry and Noah Brown come back. Um, and even then it'll probably be on some sort of pitch count. Like let the guy loose. Like let him rip the ball downfield. I want to see him be aggressive. Um, I want to see him throw some 50-50 balls. I want to see all of that because that's the only way you're going to beat these guys is if you throw a few haymakers. Um, and then finally, this is a code run game. You don't win this game, you're definitely out of it. If you don't win this game, it's not the end of the world necessarily. It does put the kibosh on the entire season, but I need to see you play with some urgency. I don't need you to come into this game already being defeated. I need to see some, if it's a close game, kind of like how it was against Miami, where it's like, there's some clear flaws here, but it is close. If you can do that against a team like Denver, I feel like even though you lost, that's still going to be some momentum. for when Jane gets back, when Terry gets back, if he's not back this week, where it's like, you know what, we're not there, but we're a lot closer to where we were last year than what we have been this season. So it's almost like some emotional momentum. So I need to see some urgency. I need to see, not against what we had against Seattle. That was just outright awful. So if we can get some urgency like we had against Miami, then I think that's going to just be some positive emotional momentum going forward for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you're putting out here. Completely. I'll just step back and talk about it generically for a second, then we can dive back into some deeper stuff. I have heard so many football coaches over the decades, I mean decades now, reaching back to the late 80s all the way up until 2 years ago, talk about playing against an opponent that you're kind of overmatched against, right? And so frequently they will talk about, well, we're going to try to shorten the game, right? We're
Yeah.
going to try to not beat ourselves, not make any mistakes. We're gonna take our shots downfield, but other than that, we're gonna play a real conservative game, and we'll hope for a turnover or two, and we'll hope they make a mistake or two, and then we'll get them. And I just think that's an awful game plan. I
Yeah.
I think that's how to not get blown out, and I hate that. I just absolutely hate that. That's not a game plan for victory. And the only way I would ever do that game plan that I've heard so many football coaches talk about is if I had two things: a strong defense. I'm in a strong, stiff defense, right? And a good running game. Because then I would have two things to shorten the game and a real path to victory, right? We know we can
Hmm.
run the football. We know we can play defense. We benefit. But this idea of just playing conservative so you don't get blown out as bad against them and you hope they have an off day, I hate that. This is the way to go right here. Okay. Maybe we lose by a lot, but I'd much rather go down swinging. Okay. The blitz thing, I especially like that because that's what Dan Quinn would really rather do. Now, he hasn't been in charge of the defense for a large part of this season, and so I've actually been encouraging them to play zone. But since Dan's taken back over and he'll have his fingerprints on when to blitz and when not to, I am thrilled for them to be blitzing. And if he wants to play some man behind that, because more often than not, you're going to be playing man behind a blitz, I'm fine with that too. If Dan's got the feel for the game and I expect him to, that's what I want to see. I don't want to see us sitting back there playing some prevent defense that doesn't give us a chance if Dan's the one calling the plays. I was okay with that earlier in the year if because the other defense was lousy, right? But Dan gives us a chance here when he's calling everything and he's got his feel. Not even necessarily play calling on defense, just when to blitz, when not to blitz. You got a feel for it. Dan's going to have that. And yeah, turn Mariota loose. I mean, what do you have to lose here? You know,
Yeah.
I we're not going to be able to pick and choose our way through this defense. We need to challenge them every chance, every play we reasonably can. We need to be challenging them, not just sitting there and letting them beat us up and then get us in third and eights, right? Or third and sixes. I don't want to be there. So let's even on first downs, let's get after it. Let's pick them up here. Let's fight it. So I really like this. I totally agree with it. Let's get after it here.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with the first point you made about not playing to not lose or, to not get blown out. Like that's just, to me, that's such a loser mentality. That unfortunately I think we've gone into a couple games with that where it's like, okay, let's
Mhm.
let's try to be careful. Let's try not to force any issues. And that's fine when you're a front runner. It's like, okay, let's not get too cute, like the Lions did last year against us, where they're like, okay, they're trying to get too fancy. They're not just sticking to the game plan, we're running it down their throats and like let's run this clock out. You know, we're not in that position. We weren't at all at this season. We were just being too conservative, and then it's like that's fine if you want to do that, but when you start making mistakes, then that game plan goes out the window. Like there's no room for you to be conservative anymore when you're constantly beating yourself up. You need to make up by being
Right,
aggressive. The
right.
problem with that is when we turned out being aggressive, when we turned the ball over, or something else would happen. So it's always been a recipe for disaster for this season.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, if the margin, the perceived margin between the two teams was closer, and I thought, hey, we got a chance at this thing if we don't kill ourselves, right? Then I would suggest a more conservative approach. But it's a wide margin right now between these two teams, and we literally have nothing to lose at this point. So
Yeah.
I really feel like all aggressive here on every play that possibly makes sense is the way to go, and we get aggressive with it. The prediction. I kind of
Yeah.
hate to, but we can't not. Which, by the way, everybody can see the double asterisks there besides NBC at the time. That was in case they flexed it out, but they're not going to flex it out now. It's going to be on Sunday night. The NFL decided to keep it for whatever reason. That will be the game on Sunday night. But I've got a score prediction in my head. Do you have one in yours?
I do. I've had it for a while. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll trot it on out, man.
I'm going 40 to 27. So
Oh,
where it's actually going to be closer,
oh,
throughout the game, it's going to be right around 30 to 23, for a couple of drives, where it's like, man, if we can just, or maybe I got to do the math right. So it'd be like 30 to 24. It's like, man, like we're right there. We just got to stop somebody.
yeah.
And, we maybe we kick the field goal to get to the 30 to 27. It's like, man, we just screwed up on that drive. Like we got to kick a field goal here,
Hmm.
and it's like, well, if we just get the ball back, and then it's just domination from there on out. I tried to
Uh,
put a positive spin on it.
well, okay. See, and that's great. I thank you. Now, I was actually disappointed when I heard your prediction. Not this is gonna sound so terrible, and I'm sorry. Okay. I wasn't disappointed because you didn't pick the Commanders to win, because I'm not picking them to win. I wasn't disappointed because you picked them to lose by double digits, because I'm picking them to lose by double digits.
Oh boy.
I was disappointed because you predicted that the Broncos might actually put up 40. And I was like, well, dang it. I just don't want to see that again. Can we please not lose that way again? So my prediction is 24 to 10. Okay. Which again,
Ooh.
double digit victory, Denver wins. But I'm hoping, because we did talk about Denver's offense is right smack in the middle of the league in almost every category. And then when I go over and I look at their personnel, it largely reflects that, right? You know,
Hmm.
there's no position group that is dominant other than the offensive line, which can be dominant at times, but is not always. And then I combine that with the fact, fingers crossed, that Dan's got his fingers on the defense now, and he listen, he gave up a lot of rushing yards to the Dolphins and still only gave up 16 points, including overtime, right? And even that was because of a Mariota pickoff, that that surrendered that final field goal. So I'm hoping that Dan can show some improvement here on this defense. We only give up 24 points. I'm just not expecting Washington, even if they're in fire mode, which I hope they will to be able to do much against this Denver defense. So that's why I've got them at 10 points. So I don't know if you're a Commanders fan like us. I don't know which prediction is more depressing, the 24 to 10 or the 40 to 27, but that's where me and you both are, right?
I'd rather, if I'm gonna lose, I'd rather score some points while we lose.
Oh, I
At
I
least it
just
makes it a little
cannot
bit more
watch us give
exciting.
up another 40 spot, man. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
hurt. If we cross the
yeah.
30 mark, I'm gonna be hurt, man. I just cannot see that again.
I would get ready to get hurt.
Oh, oh,
It's gonna
dying
happen
here.
at least two more times this season. I'd be shocked if it didn't.
You're right. That's what we should expect, because I mean the defense is beat to crap and it wasn't particularly good before that, right? But
No.
yeah. So
Well, I mean, you got Dallas again, who seems to be, on the right track there, and you got Philly
goodness
twice.
gracious.
You got Denver, and then New York again, and Minnesota. So yeah, we've got not a lot of firepower, but you do have the Dallas game, the two Philly games. So yeah. and
All
plus
right,
this.
look,
So,
the Dallas game I'm worried about. We might give up 50 in that one. But the other games, I think we got a chance. Especially that Minnesota game. If JJ McCarthy's playing quarterback that week, hey, we might look really good that week, okay? I'm just saying.
or it might, or it might be his get right game.
Or it might be his get right game. Or maybe
Yeah,
who's it, the Brosmer guy? And I'm so sorry, I don't know the fourth string quarterback from Minnesota, but
uh,
yeah, he might be playing too. So, you know,
possibly.
we'll see. All right, Commanders fans, if that's not depressing enough ending for you, we have some
Yeah.
brighter news. Robertson, why don't you tell us about what all of this channel is doing?
Well, Ben has, been cutting up some clips from this show, so if, an hour and a half of us is too much for you, you can take us in little
Uh,
bite-sized pieces, you know, occasionally. So, which seems to be doing pretty well. So, may or may not be continuing that. Probably in spots, maybe not for this week, but maybe in the future we'll continue that. Um, and then you're doing your offensive preview shows and doing your prospect analysis and all that. So it's been great work. So just make sure you subscribe and set notifications for it.
Yeah, if you're a Commanders fan, we're going to keep putting out content all during the regular season, all during the off season. It won't always be positivity, We're not in the business of making everybody feel good, but we'll try to be as, you know, entertaining and as correct as we can be. Lots of that. You can even see there on the screen, we did last week, potential free agent linebackers for the Commanders. So if you're already wanting to peek ahead toward the offseason a little bit, which is fine. We plowed through the list of linebackers, came up with about nine of them that we were kind of sort of interested, and we deep dived into those a little bit. And then on the full show, the full hour and 24-minute show that we did that week, which is also up on this channel, we've also got the free agent edge rushers as well. So guys that may or may not be available, but we doing our due diligence there, a very good segment there. So check all of that out. That is on Pro Football Enterprises. And then again, if you're looking ahead to the offseason a little bit, we've been putting out quite a few draft prospects as well, a full analysis on tons of players so far, and that will continue. We won't cover everybody, but we've especially tried to hit on the draft prospect side, we've especially tried to hit um, defensive line, linebacker, wide receiver, running back, tight end, sometimes in groups, sometimes in one-on-one profiles, but we've hit that very hard. All right. Thank you everybody for watching. Robertson, anything else before we go, man?
No, sir, I haven't got anything. Just hopefully a win on Sunday night.
Let's root for a win on Sunday night. I do think Denver's gettable. I'm just not sure, us this week, but I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to a good try here. Okay. Let's
yeah.
let's give it a good try here. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it. Have a great one. This is Pro Football Enterprises. Have a great one.